Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And we're here today after Derby's best week in a long time. 2 wins all season so far, and we've got to back that up with 2 wins in just a week. A 1-0 win at home to Norwich, and then a probably slightly more convincing 1-0 win against QPR as well. It's been really good. It's nice to see everyone positive. You can see what it's done to people, can't you? You know, the spirits are a lot higher. And thankfully, we might actually say some good stuff today, unlike last week where we basically just moaned for an hour. It will be a little bit more positive. So joining me today, first off, a man who doesn't know how to put a laptop in a bag. It's Jamie Page. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. That bit of panic, realising I've not brought my laptop home, so I'm on the phone today. Apologies for the lack of audio quality, but we'll get through it, won't we, Jake?
We will, and secondly, a man who's used to dodgy call quality on the sports scene talking. We've got Mitch Barwell for his debut. How are you doing, Mitch?
I'm all right. Yeah, I mean, talking about dodgy quality, I mean, this camera's not the best, is it? But we make do amend.
Yeah, I mean, we're not known for our quality, are we, on this podcast? So, you know, here we are. It fits the bill. It definitely fits the bill. So we've got to kick off and talk about yesterday, Jamie, because wow, what a genuinely good performance it was from Derby. We were talking last week on the pressure on Eustace. It was an important one for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, I wanted to see this Derby County team come out and have a good first half because I don't think we've played well in first halves all season. It felt like after the Norwich game, we had something to build on. We had some form of identity and a way of playing. And I think we carried it on quite well. I think we played really well in that first half, obviously got the goal. I mean, QPR, I think they're probably the worst team I've seen in a long time at Pride Park. Honestly, I think they were really poor, toothless. So I was quite worried looking at that starting lineup and seeing some of the players that they had on the bench at their disposal, but didn't really lay a glove on us. So, yeah, I think had the opposition been a little bit better, maybe it would have been a bit more of a tighter game and not as convincing. But on the whole, a really good performance and to back up a win is really important. Would have liked to have seen another goal or another 2 goals, but we can't be too greedy, can we?
Yeah, well, we'll definitely get onto that because Derby certainly had chances throughout the game. And Mitch, you know, mentioned there to Jamie, the pressure was really on Eustace, wasn't it, ahead of that Norwich game, you know, after a really poor performance at Oxford. But he's done it again, hasn't he? He's turned us around.
Yeah, I think the pressure was mounting, definitely. I think you've looked at teams around Derby in the league, there was a lot that was going against them. And, you know, when you're moving towards like relegation places and other teams are starting to pick up points and you're not, there's the social media, we've seen it can, you know, completely lose their heads and everyone's just all of a sudden thinking that, you know, Eustace has to go or at least, you know, start getting questions asked about him. And then he picks up the result, despite the performance not being great first half against Norwich. That second half performance, as Jamie said, needed to be built on. And you get that win, and then you go and follow it up with another win, and all of a sudden everything's, you know, sunshine and rainbows, and everyone's happy.
Well, I mean, like we said at the start of the show, you know, we've won 2 games all season and suddenly we've won 2 in just a few days. And it does huge amounts for the confidence, not just of the players, but for the fans as well. You know, Norwich wasn't a great performance, was it? That first half, I mean, was horrendous. We started off with that horrible 4-2-4 that we've been playing where our midfield was destroyed. We probably should have been 2 down within a couple of minutes. I think Zetterstrom was on 3 or 4 saves after 5 minutes, which is ridiculous. But that half time, Jamie, against Norwich, Derby changed their system. They went to the back 5. And the best player in the world, Sandra Langas, came back from injury, slotted right back in that right centre-back role. And they just looked so different, didn't they? That back 5, it just seems to suit this team.
Yeah, it does. And look, he's a fantastic player. He definitely is. And I'm sure we'll wax lyrical about him through this whole episode. But I think any player that come on, even if it had been Danny Bart at the back, giving us that shape, I think would have improved us because it meant that Max Johnson can push on. There's a bit more kind of shape in midfield. And there's not silly situations like Brereton Diaz having to defend diagonal balls into the corners or Carlton Morris picking the ball up in a left-back position. You know, the 4-2-4, as you called it there, it just didn't make sense. It was almost like Eustace was told he's got to put all these players on the pitch and we've got to try and find a way of making it work. And unfortunately, it just wasn't working. So I think there were a lot of calls before the game and definitely at half-time to bring Langas on and change it. And as soon as he did, we looked so much better. You know, I think Adjumang had a poor first half. Max Johnson had a poor first half, and both of those were key in kind of getting us over the line and giving us an outlet. So, yeah, really good change at half time, and hopefully we see this formation moving forward. But typical Derby County, as soon as we move to a formation that we seem to like and get some success from, we end up getting an injury to a key player. So we'll have to see. But for me, I think that's the formation you need to play until you can really guarantee that you've got players that can play a 4. And I don't think at the moment we can do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you mentioned there the player getting injured immediately as we find a system. I remember quite a lot, probably about 10 years ago now, when Paul Clement played that 4-4-2 diamond all through pre-season. First game of the season, Bolton, Will Hughes ACL. We had to completely change the system that we've been trying to play all summer. So yeah, it is just typical, isn't it? But Mitch, we saw, didn't we, going from that Norwich game, the second half we looked much better, but we still didn't look amazing. Whereas when you look at the QPR game, Derby really carried that forward, didn't they? That formation, the players seemed to get used to it a lot more.
Yeah, they did. I think, to be honest, having Langas back, and we're probably going to touch on that, I imagine, throughout this, but having Langas back has just changed that side completely. I mean, you look at the minutes that have been played without Langas compared to the minutes that have been played with Langas, and it's just been completely different. I mean, the results have already come just from having him in just for those 45 minutes against Norwich and the 90 minutes against QPR. And I think, you know, they have built into a formation now that clearly they are suited to, I think, given the personnel. Whether it's something that John Eustace in the past has been favoured to like, we don't think so. But given what he's got, and last season we saw it, you know, it worked for him last season, and I think this season as well, given who he's brought in and who's available and the lack of sort of wingers in that squad, that is going to be what he needs to sort of play on. And it's a shame that Max Johnston is now looking like he's having a spell on the sidelines with a hamstring injury. But that's now an opportunity for like a Joe Ward, I guess, or a Ryan Niambi to come in and sort of state their claim, because Max Johnston, I suppose, hasn't really sort of lit the world alight compared to the comments that were made by John Eustace when he was signed, saying that, you know, he's one of the greatest young fullbacks in the world currently. And then he's come in and hasn't quite shown that just yet, but obviously it's early days. So it is an opportunity, though, for someone like a Ward or an Niambi, as I say, to come in and sort of make that position theirs for however many games it may be.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one we'll get onto a bit later. Who does come in that right wing back spot now? Now Johnson's picked up that hamstring injury. Hopefully not too serious, because I thought, to be honest, he was probably having his best game in a Derby shirt. His play for the goal was really, really good. Got a comment from Richard Greaves asking my results today. The girls won 2-1 away at Buxton. You know, 7 wins in 8 now after only winning 1 game last season. Eustace, you know, we were calling for the 5-3-2 or 3-4-3 last week. If you want any tips, mate, just come here. Just listen to us. We know what we're doing, maybe, possibly. Jamie, let's go on to that goal then. The QPR goal. It's a pretty decent ball into the box, gets headed away, cushioned across to Max Johnston, and he plays a genuinely exquisite, like, outside of the football that drops right on the edge of the 6-yard box. The only person on the pitch that gambled on that ball, Sondra Langas, who, as I said, is the best player in the world. And I was actually really hoping he'd score, to be honest, but he gets a lovely touch on it. And Carlton Morris, the poacher, he's there to finally end his goal drought and put the ball in the back of the net. 5 goals for the season for him as well now, which is, you know, halfway to double figures, which all strikers want. I mean, Jamie, it's a genuinely good goal, isn't it? It was really good football from Derby. And I know we say it's a shame that Johnson's out, but he showed his quality there too.
Yeah, I didn't actually realise it was on the outside of the foot until I watched back the replay. It's quite exquisite, the bit of skill to put it back into the area like that. I mean, the first thing that I thought upon seeing that QPR team is that they were quite vertically challenged, and I thought we were going to get some luck from corners. And yes, we didn't score from that particular corner, but the recycling and the ball back into the box, and it's just willingness, isn't it, from Langas? It's kind of I'm going to get onto the end of this cross, and like you said there, I would have loved if it was a shot on goal that would trickle across the line. To be honest, I think if it was going in, which I don't think it was, I think Morris probably still would have smashed it in because he's a striker and that's what strikers
David
do.
Nugent and Dora.
Exactly. So yeah, can't blame him for tucking that one away. I think we'd all do the same if we were all in Derby County shirts. But yeah, just a really good bit of play and willingness, and that's what we need in both boxes. We need that in our own box to defend set pieces, but then we also need to take advantage of having good aerial ability. The back three, Sanderson, Clark, and Langas can all get their heads on things, and I think that's going to be massive for us again this season. Didn't realise as well, Langas had a long throw and Elder had a long throw, and that seems to be the fashionable thing in football at the moment. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of that throughout the season. And yeah, look, we just need to make sure that we get on that first ball, and if we can't get on that first ball, get on that second ball. And I think that was a thing for me when we went on that little run of losing games and drawing games. I just didn't think that we were competing in both boxes, whereas yesterday I thought we were really good. And I know we're going to speak about Langas again and again and again, but you've got to say Matt Clark and Sanderson as well, really, really solid in both boxes. And I think that four, Zetterstrom, Sanderson, Clark and Langas, that's as good as you're going to get in this division. I really do think that, and that's our foundation to build from. So yeah, starting to get more excited 12 minutes into this episode. By the end of it, I think we're going to win it all.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's a standard episode, I think. Let's touch on that back three, Mitch, and obviously Zestrom in goal, because we had a run of 10 games where we conceded first in every game, and suddenly we've gone back-to-back games, back-to-back clean sheets. I think my brother told me, I don't know if it's true or not, I'm pretty sure it is. The game was the first league game, the QPR game was the first league game where we were actually leading at half time, which is staggering, isn't it? When you think how many games we've played so far this season, the fact we've scored in the majority of games we've played in as well. A big part of the fact that we've improved defensively is obviously Sondre Langas coming back, but Sanderson and Clark have been huge as well. Sanderson's obviously out of contract end of the season. There's a lot of talk about, do we wait until the end of the season, or do we get him in January? I think Vic put a comment in earlier saying we're potentially exploring that. Would you like to see him stick around at Derby?
I think, well, given the first couple of games that he played, I'd have said no right as soon as you asked me that. But now he's had a bit of time to settle in, and he's been absolutely brilliant. I think, the way he's sort of commanded that back line, him and Clark, yeah, there's been a couple of slip-ups at times, but that happens. Mistakes are always going to be in football. Defenders are always going to make mistakes. It doesn't matter if you're Dion Sanderson or Virgil van Dijk, you're going to make a mistake every now and then. But I think the way that, him and Clark have formed a partnership, and now Langas is back as well, I think I'd absolutely have him stay around. I think, if it's January, it kind of works, because I think in January you sort of then free up a loan spot, and then you've got an opportunity to bring someone else in on loan, whether that be probably a midfielder, I'd imagine would be the sort of, or a winger would be the desire.
That would be nice, actually, yeah.
But obviously, then do you want to spend out, if Vic said, didn't he, about 500,000, I think. If it is around that fee, it's not that much in modern day football to sort of throw at someone if it means you can bring in an extra loan as well. Or do you want to wait until the end of the season and say, well, we'll get you on a free? But I do think, the ultimate answer is yes, I would have him around, and I'd definitely keep him at the club.
Yeah, I think he's earned it. He's really earned it. I've not seen a a Derby player have so many poor early games and turn it around like that before. I was chatting to someone yesterday on the way out from the game, was saying he's got a little bit of Cole Palmer about him. I'm not saying his footballing ability, but I think he just has no thoughts in his head. And sometimes that is like the best thing possible, because he doesn't overthink things. He doesn't overthink it. He gets his body in there. He wins headers. He wins tackles. I mean, Matt Clark was absolutely, unbelievable yesterday. He was brilliant. But Sanderson, I think, wasn't far off as well. So yeah, positive signs at the minute. Jamie, going back to that forward line. Now, what we saw when we played the 4-2-4 was we had Brereton Diaz out on the left. Kind of playing as the left striker, and then you had Morris and Adjumang tripping over each other's feet in the middle, and then on the right you had the likes of Vyman and players like that, or Brewster, as we did first half against Norwich. We changed that when we went to the back three, to the /back five. We had a front three. Brereton Diaz went on the right, Adjumang went on the left, Carlton Morris went down the middle, and I thought it actually brought the best out of all three of them. I mean, Brereton Diaz's movement in behind is really, really good, actually, and he looks so much more at home, not having to cut inside every time. You look at Carlton Morris, suddenly he doesn't, Adjumang's a big guy. He's hard not to run into. And I think he appreciates maybe being the focal point a bit more. And then Adjumang, when we spoke before he signed, one of the things that was highlighted was his ability running with the ball. For a 6'5" guy, you don't see many of them that go bombing down the line with the ball. But I thought he absolutely tore their defence apart at times. They genuinely couldn't get near. I mean, for the goal against Norwich, it was great running. It's just strength, power, and a bit of technical ability to boot as well. And he brushes off three players, lays off Ozo, puts it at the top corner, and he did it all game as well against QPR. How impressed were you with Derby's front three, and can you see it carrying on?
Yeah, really impressed, because I think we're getting the best out of them. I think Morris is your target man. He is. I mean, there was a moment where he won a free kick yesterday, and it was vintage Chris Martin. The comparison is definitely there between those two. But he's your target man. He'll win you flick-ons. He'll hold the ball up, bring others into play. Adjumang, I don't think he's actually that good in the air. I don't think he is. I don't think he goes to head the ball as much as he probably should. I think he actually wants to get the ball down and beat players. And we saw that yesterday, that he can do that. And I think he must be an absolute nightmare to play against, because obviously he's 6 foot something. You really don't know if he's going to hold the ball up or turn you and run you down the line. And I think if he's occupying a couple of defenders, dragging defenders out of play, that's when you start getting room for Morris, for Brereton Diaz. And it was interesting because, yes, they are playing wide with respect to Adjumang and Brereton Diaz, but there is quite a lot of movement among the three of them. They're not so static. They do want to move, and they're just nightmares for defenders, kind of for full 90 minutes or for 70 minutes or whatever that might be. So yeah, I really like that. And then, of course, as soon as they get tired, which of course they're going to, you've then got the likes of Brewster, Vyman, Jackson yesterday, obviously, to come off the bench. And that's not, we didn't have that last season. I mean, I was really impressed with Salverson and Jackson off the bench against Norwich, to be honest. I think they played quite well and able to get us up the pitch, keep hold of the ball. And that was exactly what the doctor ordered at that minute in the game. So yeah, I think we've definitely got options there. If I was asked to pick a three at the moment, I think Morris is definitely locked. I think the other two positions are up for grabs, but that's the way it should be. I think that's the way it needs to be. I think, yes, good performances will keep you in this side, but they're not going to keep you in the side for the foreseeable. You need to keep earning that shirt. And I think both Brereton Diaz and Adjumang will continue to have to keep doing that. And the way that they do that is being involved in goals like Adjumang was against Norwich.
Mitch, Brereton Diaz is an interesting player, isn't he? Because he's had a few games where he's looked like he's never seen a ball before. And that first half against Norwich, I was genuinely questioning if we'd signed the right guy or we just found another guy with long hair and plonked him on the wing and hoped it was him. When he was on the right, completely different player. I genuinely don't understand it, because that second half against Norwich, his movement in behind was great. like genuinely really, really good. And he was just the same against QPR as well. He's not rapid, but he's quick enough, but his timing of his run is great. And when you've got someone like Brewster or someone like Bobby Clark that can pick a pass and find those spaces, he's great. His movement in the box is really good. I thought he was quite unlucky. He had one that he flicked around the corner, didn't he? The keeper tipped wide. He also missed that completely open goal, but I'll let him off because I thought it looked quite easy from where I was sat. I watched the replay. Maybe it's a bit harder than that. But yeah, he struck the post. What have you made of him?
Well, it's a difficult one because you know the quality's there. You know that there's definitely a player in there. I mean, he's a Chilean international, Premier League experience. He's gone, big money moves. And you sort of look at him and you think, yeah, he's definitely someone who should be doing probably better than he is doing at the moment. But then you look at him against Wrexham and he smacks in that goal and you think, that's what you bring this player to the club for. This is what he can produce. I think it's hard at the moment because it's sort of like there is no width, as we've mentioned. So you're sort of shoehorning players into different positions. And maybe if Blackett-Taylor, for example, was not injured so often, he might be playing in one role, which then would free Ben Brereton to play a different role, and then we'd see more from him. So I think it's hard at the moment for him because you are seeing a player play sort of on the left one time, on the right another time. Then he might get told to go, a bit more through the middle because there's sort of a lack of structure consistently because of the players that are available to John Eustace, whether it be through injury or lack of fitness or players travelling away. I mean, don't forget, we've also seen Ben Brereton Diaz going out to Chile, for international duty.
To his homeland, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going out to these sort of, long haul flights, whatever, coming back, and then he's arriving back in the UK, and then 24 hours later, he's playing a game, and then obviously he came off in the one when he returned from the international break and after 45 minutes, but he's still having to, come on, and it's him or Adjaman who have both gone away on those long distance. So I think in time, I think we'll see a bit more from him. I think there's definitely a player in there, and yesterday, he should have probably scored. It was, it's one of those where you look at it back and you think, well, we won 1-0, so it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, as Jamie said, it would have been nice to have, an extra goal at least, to, make it a bit more of a convincing result. But yeah, I think, to be honest, in time, you might see a bit more from him when sort of things start to click, when players start to come back, and when that formation, especially whether it be a 4 or the 5, which seems to be the best one suited for this team at the moment, once that properly clicks in, I think we'll see a lot more from him.
Yeah, I do like the fact that he never stops as well. He might make a few poor passes, he might lose the ball, but he always keeps making the runs and he always keeps, doing the right things. And I like that. Like you said, he's probably not delivered how he'd hoped to have delivered so far. But if he keeps doing that, he will get the results. Martin Waghorn was a prime example of that over the last few years, wasn't he? Because, he missed more chances than he scored, but he always made the runs and he was always in the right place. And it was like, okay, Waghorn's missed 15 open goals this season, but he scored 10. And those 10 have made a big difference. So, yeah, hopefully he can build, become a little bit more clinical and score some more goals. Taking a quick look at the comments. Hello to Danish, who's in the comments today. We've got a few comments from Jim talking about Big Pat being deceptively quick. 55 pace on FIFA, which is slower than Chris Martin was, by the way, back in the day, which I genuinely cannot believe because he is very fast. I'm having a look at the stats and I've noticed that Mbeng, who got basically thrown around and ragdolled by Adjamang for 90 minutes, got man of the match statistically as well. And all me and my brother could say all game was he was the worst player on the pitch. So I think that says a lot about ratings and things like that. But the comments are looking really positive, Jamie, aren't they? And a big part of that positivity is the fact that the team looks a little bit more balanced now. And I think the main reason for that is we've got our width in the right places. We had Callum Elder at left wing back. We had Max Johnson at right wing back. I thought they were brilliant, both of them, getting up and down all game, balls into the box, causing problems, but also getting back to defend too. As we mentioned, Max Johnston, it was probably his best game for Derby. 88th minute, ends up doing his hamstring whilst we're on the counter-attack. I think Bobby Clark just did too many body feints and let him get too far up the pitch, and his body just couldn't handle it. Obviously, he probably won't be fit for a while, will he? We've got two real options that can fill in that position, unless we bring someone in to play some Dom Soboslai Liverpool role where, we play like Ebu Adams at right wing back or something ridiculous like that. But it's either Joe Ward or Ryan Iambi, isn't it? Who are you picking?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest replacement, is it? I'll be honest. I think both players haven't really had great Derby County careers. I think Niambi's probably going to give you a bit more solidity in that position, but then you're relying on Elder creating wide, which I don't really like. I don't really like having a reliance on just one side. I want us to be able to attack both ways, and Niambi probably gets as far as the halfway line, and that's where he kind of stops. I think he's got a collar on or something, and once he gets past there, he gets an electric shock. So I'm not sure Niambi is the answer, but what I would say is if we're going and playing for something in an away game against a Coventry or one of the top 6 sides, maybe that's what you do. Ward, I've been impressed with at times. I think he's probably the opposite. I think he's probably better going forward and then sometimes gets found out defensively. It's a real toss-up between those two, and I've been thinking about it, and I'm still not sure who I'd start against Sheffield United. You said there about Ebu Adams. I might do it. I'd be tempted to do it because, look, he's not going to give you technical ability out there, but what he will give you is energy up and down. And yeah, maybe he'll cross and one of them will hit Rosette, but maybe one of them will hit Morris on the head as well. But yeah, I don't know, to be honest. It's really frustrating because it's the one position really where we've got the injury and the person coming in I'm not too confident about. I think, yes, there are better players than Max Johnston in this team at the moment. However, if a Carlton Morris gets injured, you've got a Salverson. You could play Adjumang up there. For example, if you lost a Langas again, which I hope we never do, I hope he never suffers any form of injury ever again in his career. But you have got the likes of Fozzie, you've got the likes of Bath on the bench. So, yeah, that one is particularly frustrating. It's probably going to be 4 to 6 weeks. That's typically the time scale for a hamstring. So one of those players is going to get the opportunity. But yeah, I'm thinking as I'm speaking, and I still can't make my mind up if I'm brutally honest. So I might let Mitch have Rams Talk say on who we think should be the replacement for Max Johnston.
Go on, Mitch.
Well, I think for me, it depends on the formation you play. I think if you play a 4, you've got Niambi, you need that defensive cover. And if you're playing someone ahead of him who's not going to be sort of defending as much, you can get away with it a little bit more. But I think if you're playing that 5, then just let Ward play as a wing back because he can get further up the pitch. He can overlap. He can he's got a good delivery. We know that. He's probably got one of the best deliveries, if not the best at the club. So I would probably say if you're playing a 5, especially with the players that's going to be behind him, if you play Langas behind him, then you don't have to really worry because Langas has got the pace. And if you play Sanderson, again, we know he's been solid the last however many games. So I think realistically, I would personally, given how well the 5 or the 3, whatever you want to class it as, has been in the last sort of 2 games, well, 1.5 games, I would definitely have Ward in. I think that's the best suited, especially with Johnston. I think if you look at how Johnston needs more of that attacking wing back anyway, and I think Ward is the more like for like. Because you can't put Niambi in a right wing back role, he's just not going to work there. You're going to be playing with four at the back because whoever's on the left, if it's Callum Elder, is going to go forward, but then Niambi's not going to match that on the other side. So you are pretty much, in my opinion, going to have to start Ward.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. We don't want to give Ebu Adams any excuse to try that diagonal ball again. You know, we cannot let that man attempt a diagonal pass. And if he's at right wing back, you know Callum Elder is the target every time. So, yeah, I'm fully on board. I think it's got to be Joe Ward, hasn't it? I think him and Johnston aren't the same player, but the similarities between them and having Sondra Langas behind them. I think if it was Danny Bart playing in the middle with Sanderson right centre back, I don't think I'd have the same confidence. But having, I mean, the comments have said the second best player in the world. I'd love to know who the first best is. Is it Matt Clark by any chance, or Carlton Morris? But yeah, I think having someone like that behind him will make a huge difference, won't it? And yeah, it's good experience as well, having played internationally, etc. So. One area we haven't spoken about so far is the midfield. Now, on Tuesday, Ebu Adams did his usual pointless, cynical foul, hauled someone down, got a yellow card, got a suspension. We were all a bit worried going into the QPR game. We spoke a lot about it on Radio Derby on Friday. You know, who we bring in, how would we play? And I think we both said, Mitch, we both said Bobby Clark, didn't we? And turns out we're right. Turns out we both just know football. And Jamie, what a performance from Bobby Clark. We've said the whole time, he's not a winger, right? He's a central player. He's calm, he's composed, but he'll work, he'll run, he'll fight. Is he quick? No. But he's quick enough to play in the centre of the park. I mean, I thought he was excellent yesterday and was arguably man of the match.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant, and I think it was a massive opportunity for him to see him where he probably wants to play, because I think in that position he gets more time on the ball, he can see a lot more, and he's playing alongside David Ozo as well, and who wouldn't want to do that? I think Ozo was fantastic yesterday at helping Clark be the player that he wants to be, but. Yeah, I was slightly worried because we know he's not as physical as other players in there. But I think what you've got in Bobby Clark is almost the polar opposite of Ebu Adams, because Ebu Adams doesn't need the ball and wants to tear around and break up things. And when he gets the ball, it's not probably as exciting as it is when he's not got the ball. Whereas for Bobby Clark, it's the opposite. You want him on the ball, loads of touches. As you said earlier, a drop of the shoulder. He's technically a really good footballer. He's obviously come through the academy at Newcastle and Liverpool, and he's from a footballing family. So he's a really good technical player. And I think we saw that yesterday, and wasn't worried at all at any point, really, about the lack of physicality or him getting bullied. If anything, I think he gave as good as he got. He was sliding into challenges and really grew in confidence throughout the game, and probably deserved more in terms of assists. And yeah, I'm really excited to see him there. I think he's kept the shirt. What I would say is, if we go away again on Saturday, or we go away to somewhere else and Travis is out, do you put an extra body in the midfield? Do you put a Tomo? Do you put an Ebu Adams in there and almost play a 3-5-2 rather than this 3-4-3 that we're playing? I think that could help Clark, because it probably could push him a little bit further up the pitch. But yeah, I thought he was absolutely excellent, and that's the kind of performance that we want to see from him. And it's the kind of performance we want to see. It's probably the kind of performance that Celtic want to see as well, if they're sniffing around in January. But yeah, I hope he stays, and I hope he stays fit, and I hope he stays in this team, because I think he'll get loads of assists, and he's the kind of player you want to watch. You know, I love Ebu Adams. I love Lewis Travers. I think they're good players. But I think on the eye, David Ozo and Bobby Clark are streaks ahead of those two.
Well, we actually played through the middle of the pitch, which is something that we never do. Like, we looked so much better on the ball, having two players in the middle that could play the ball. You know, we've seen it for the last few years. We've had a team of not real ball players, and when two players as naturally gifted as Ozo and Clark have come in, you can tell the levels. I mean, I thought his best moment was that run from pretty much the edge of his own box, wasn't it? Where he ended up running all the way through, and he beat, 4-5 players? I mean, it did lead to Max Johnston's death, so maybe hopefully giving it away a little bit earlier than that. But it's that sort of quality that we've really missed. Mitch, does he keep his shirt for the weekend?
I think he has to. I don't think you can put in a performance like he did and then get taken out. And I know it's one of those where you look at it and you go, well, that was not his natural position to play in that role. But it's not your national position, but you've gone in there and done a player of the match performance. Why should you be dropped? Why should you have to be taken out just because someone else is back that is naturally in that position? Because realistically, it should be about the performance and how well you play. It's not, he's not an out-and-out centre mid or a number 6 or a number 8, but he went into that role and he played it really well. So I think you've got to keep that shirt. You can't take it off him and say, yeah, you had a great game, you were playing the match, but Ibu Adams is now back, let's just put you straight in. Because Ibu Adams could go in and, Ibu Adams could have the best game of his career at Derby County and everyone will love him. Or you could start Bobby Clark and he could have the worst game. You just don't know. But I think if you're going to be fair, you've got to keep him in the side and let him at least have that chance after putting in that performance.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's his shirt to lose now, isn't it? Really, I don't think Ibu's been quite the same player. That maybe it's just because we've changed the way we're playing, isn't it? He's just not looked quite the same player this season. I don't remember him ever getting caught out on the ball as much as he has this season. You know, he's never been a great ball player, but I think this year he's just not quite hit the heights he has in previous years. But JB, you mentioned there, you know, we could potentially change the shape. Obviously, going to Sheffield United next week. Would you?
It's a tough one because I do like us playing a three in the middle and having a bit more kind of width. So I would potentially do it, and I'd probably rest one of the forwards. Ajimang, I think, was struggling a little bit towards the back end of the game. He looked like he was really blowing. Brereton Diaz probably similar as well. So I think one of those could do with a rest, if not both of them. And I think that's the beauty that you've got. We could go and bring Ebu in and play that 3 and Clark a bit more advanced, and then play Brewster and Morris up front, for example. We've got options now, and I think we need to explore that. And just because you're on the bench doesn't mean you're not useful, because as we've seen, Ajimang can create things when he comes off the bench, and the same with Brereton Diaz as well. So I'd be half tempted to put Ebu in, push Clark up a little bit, and try and get him in behind the 2 strikers and see what we can do in that respect. But I wouldn't be massively disappointed if we didn't change anything and we were kind of as is, and Ebu was on the bench. But I think it's interesting because Sheffield United, after they obviously brought back Wilder, I thought that they're going to turn around now, and that's going to be them, and they'll find their way up the league. It's always a game you look at and you think Sheffield United away will never get anything there. But I actually feel like if we go and we perform as we did yesterday, I think we've got every chance in getting a result and nicking something. And one thing I absolutely love is the fact that we've got Brewster, a former Blade, and Brereton Diaz, a former Blade. I mean, they're guaranteed. If they were coming to Derby as ex-Derby players, they'd definitely score. So hopefully it's the case for them next Saturday as well.
Yeah, we never win at Bramall Lane, do we? We never seem to win. I actually can't remember the last time we did win at Bramall Lane. It's been a really, really long time. I'm not sure if anyone in the comments can remember that or find out, because I definitely don't remember. I was unfortunate to go to the last couple, which were awful. So let's Ben Osborne in the wall. I'll never forget that. That was great work from us as usual. Mitch, same question to you, I guess, mate. How do you see Derby shaping up at the weekend?
I feel like you've got to keep it the same. I don't see how you can really change it after the 45 minutes against Norwich and then the 90 minutes against QPR. I don't see how you can sort of change that formation up. I know that Sheffield United are clearly a team that have struggled so far this season, and they're a team that you really should be going up against and going, right, these are for the taking. And especially the position we're in, the position they're in, the form we're starting to pick up. You know, you'd like to think that you would probably chuck an extra attacker in that side and say, look, these are for the taking, as I say, like, let's just go for it. But the problem is, if you do change it up and you having to lose one of those centre-halves, you can't, you know, it's impossible unless you play Langas as a fullback, which obviously we don't really want to be doing, to be honest. I think, and that would be harsh as well, to drop Sanderson, Clark or Langas. it would be harsh. And I don't think you're going to drop Langas after the performances of his return. I don't think you can really pick out of Clark and Sanderson who to drop, because they've both been solid and they've both filled in while Langas has been out. So for me, I think it's got to be that 3-5, whatever you class it as. I think it's got to stay as that. And to be honest, I think the team that played against QPR, maybe, fitness levels and stuff, like we've seen Adjaman clearly struggling a little bit towards the end of the game. Maybe he could be replaced for someone. But I do think that really that squad should stay the same. That formation should stay the same. And it's one of those as well. I think John Eustace has shown it multiple times this season. When stuff ain't working at half time, he's not scared to change it up. If there's, he did it against Norwich. It wasn't working. He took a player off. He's been bold and taken Ben Brereton Diaz off at half time. He's took Ryan Brewster off at half time. Like, he's not scared to change this up. I would like to see like Brewster in the team, and you say, going up against a former club, it's always got that added bonus of they're always going to score against us, and every fan always thinks that no matter who comes up against them. But I think as well, we can't really be complacent about it and go, yeah, they're struggling, they're easy, they're for the taking as such, because yes, they are probably there for the taking, but you can't get complacent and just go, right, we're going to put 5 forwards on the pitch, 2 attacking midfielders on the pitch, and then just leave a couple at the back, because it's not going to be that easy. And they have won as well recently, Sheffield United. They have got a result recently. It's not like, they're completely right at the bottom and they've not won a game, they've not got a single point, and they're not scoring goals. Like, they have proven they can get results. So for me, I would keep it the same, keep it the exact same. And to be honest, I don't really think there's a change to be made if, you look at it based on the result from QPR, because I think it'd be harsh to take someone out. Obviously, you've got an enforced change, but those that aren't enforced, I would keep the same, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think we've got to keep it the same. That's the first game of the season I think we've actually dominated. If you look at the stats, apart from possession, because QPR passed it around the back for a lot of the game, we dominated shots. We dominated pretty much every metric. I don't think they even had a shot on target in the end after Kone spooned that header over the bar, which was quite funny. So let's look ahead to Sheffield United. I know we've kind of mentioned it already, but let's have a look at them. So last 5 games, they, as Mitch said, they beat Watford, beat Blackburn away as well, but they also lost a couple, lost to Hull, lost to Southampton, who are pretty dismal at the moment. And then, I don't know if anyone saw earlier the weekend, a pretty horrendous capitulation against Preston. Like 2-0 up, losing 3-2. I mean, that's the stuff of nightmares, isn't it? I bet those away fans had a very different day to what they expected about 20 minutes in. Whereas, obviously, Derby, about 1 million draws in a row, horrible defeat to Oxford. And then, as we've talked about for 40 or so minutes, the wins against Norwich and QPR. Jamie, it's not going to be easy. We know it won't be easy. They are a wounded animal at the minute, as Vic says in the comments there. They're not hitting the form that they thought they'd have. They've got a lot of players out injured at the moment. Gustavo Harmer, according to FotMob, is out until early December, which is, he's their best player, isn't he, quite comfortably. So they're struggling at the minute. However, Ryan Jono thinks it was 2011 the last time we won at Bramall Lane. That's quite a while ago. That, I mean, you were probably 45 that year. It's been a few years. I mean, how do you see it going?
Yeah, it's difficult because, like I say, I just don't feel like we ever get a result there, and quite clearly we don't. I think it'll be a draw, and I think I'll take a draw now. After the 2 wins, I think I would take a draw on the road. So yeah, I think it's going to be 1-1. I think 1-1, back to the ways of drawing games, and like I say, I wouldn't be too disappointed about that. I know, look, they are a bit of a wounded animal, and they are where they are in the league. However, you go away, any game you go away to and you get a point, especially against a team that are perceived to be one of the bigger in the division, regardless of where they are at this point in the season. I think that's a good return. So yeah, I'll have a point away, and then we'll beat them at our place. That'd be the dream.
If you've got score predictions of goal scorers, please leave them in the comments as well. Jamie, who's your goal scorer? Anyone will draw?
Look, I've got to go for one of the ex-Blades, haven't I? So I will go for Brereton Diaz.
Brereton Diaz.
I'd rather it be Brewster, I think, because I think Brewster would probably hurt them more. But we'll go Brereton Diaz.
Yeah, 25 million signing, leaving on a free and scoring against you the next year. That wouldn't be ideal, I think.
And celebrating.
Yeah, oh God. Mitch, how do you see it go, mate?
I also think it's going to be a draw, to be honest. I think a 1-1. I think Derby will probably take the lead, and then I think Sheffield United will just get sort of a lucky goal out of somewhere. But I think, to be honest, a draw is probably going to be something that you can accept now. I think those last 2 wins, you can look at it and go, a draw against a side like Sheffield United, yes, they haven't had the season so far that anyone would probably expected. But we saw that with Luton. Luton the season before, they came down and everyone was going to, they were one of everyone's favourites to go up again. And then, they struggled. So we know it can happen, but I think a team like Sheffield United, they won't stay down for too long, I'd imagine. And I imagine they're still going to be a threat. They've still got good players. I mean, I know that their fans aren't really that impressed with players like Tom Cannon at the moment, but they're still a threat. This is a player that got signed for a decent amount of money. So they're not going to be a team that you can just sort of expect to go up against because of their league position and then not cause a threat against you, which is why I think it'll be a draw. But I mean, as I say, it's an acceptable result, I think, given the last 2 games. If the last 2 games were defeats and then you go up against a team in a position that Sheffield United are in, then you'd look at it and go, right, if you're not going to win that game, then what are you going to do? Because you need to start doing something now. Now they've started doing something, you'd like to think momentum and everything would carry it over, and 3 out of 3. I mean, Manchester United, for example, are a team that couldn't get a win at all. And then, that guy who's not cut his hair might actually have a chance at getting his hair cut for, the first time in 385 days or whatever it is now. But I'm not going to start going on about saying I'm going to have my hair, cut or not cut or whatever until Bobby can find the road. But I do think there's definitely a bit of pressure off going into this game now, and that's why I think a 1-1 draw would be fair. And if you're going to ask me for a goal scorer, I'm going to go with Bobby Clark. I think he's going to I don't know why, I can just see in my head him picking the ball up in the midfield, going forward a bit, and then just curling one left-footed, across the ground, bottom corner.
I like it. I have to admit, Mitch, that is the longest score prediction we've ever had. That was unbelievable.
It's a Rams Talk record.
I love it, mate. That's great. In the comments, Jim says we're going to win 1-0. Brereton Diaz with the goal. Matt says Langas and Jackson 2-0. Jackson Lender's 36 games without a goal. He's only 10 away from a full season. Ross says Brereton Diaz to score. Vic Singh says 2-1 win with a Morris header and a Brewster thunderbolt in front of the away fans. The real Chibuddy G says Derby going to win 2-1. Morris and Brereton Diaz. And Simon Pillard says it's going to be 3-1 to Derby. Big Pat, Morris and Brewster to score. So it's looking a bit more positive considering last week was like, yeah, we're going to lose 4-0. Yeah, we're going to lose 3-0. It's always reactionary, isn't it? But it's good to see a bit of positivity. I think my personal one, I'm going to be Mr. Boring as well. I'm going to say it'll be a draw. I reckon it'll be a 2-2. Ryan Brewster, why not, to score a late equaliser after... let's say Sandra Langas scores a previous equaliser earlier in the game as well. So two good scorers there too. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, Apple Pods, any of that sort of thing, please give us a 5-star rating. It really does help us out. We're on to like 166 ratings, by the way, on Spotify, which is crazy. That is such a big number. So if anyone listens on Apple Pods and wants to boost the number on that to get near it, we'd be really, really grateful too. So thank you. So 2 wins in a row. Massive for Derby. Never thought we'd do it again. I thought it'd be nice to see us have a shot at some point, but you know what? We've turned it around. We've won a couple of games and it's been fantastic. Let's keep this going. So thank you for listening. And Mitch, pay great attention because you're going to have to take part in a minute. It's goodbye from me.
Playoff push is inbound. Long may it continue. It's goodbye from me.
Well, I'm going to say Bobby Clark, left foot, bottom corner, and that Manchester United fan will get his hair cut eventually. It's goodbye from me.
Perfect. Natural. I love it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.